Hi, everybody. It is Morgan Durham, and I'm excited to talk to you about a research proposal that I would like to follow up more on in the future. I had the opportunity to do a not so structured study, um, and we learned so much just from the casual study. So I would really like to push further into that. So, we're going to talk about study buddies, and that is peer mediated literacy routine. So, here's the problem that we're trying to solve. There's a massive ELA proficiency gap. Students with disabilities are performing at 11.63% on average, and that is from state testing like ACAP. Um, and then all remaining student populations are at a 52.42. Um, and the participation rates are almost identical to these, is that the students with disabilities are 11 to 13, and all the rest of students are in the 50s. So participation and proficiency is really a major issue when it comes to, well, all students, but especially those with disabilities. So this matters because we have low independent engagement, meaning that if I give little Johnny an assignment to finish by the end of class, he has low engagement to do that. If you ask questions aloud, sometimes in class you'll just get kids to stare or shrug at you. Um, Students have become extremely reliant on teacher prompting, and that could mean what, and almost until you give them the answer. And then they give themselves limited practice opportunities, because we do have enough for the time we're allotted a lot of the time. However, if students are hard to prompt per question, we're not getting to the point we need to get to, obviously. So, the purpose of this study would be to improve engagement, to improve comprehension, and also use a structured, and I want to uh, zone in on that word there, a structured peer routine. And this is for students who usually do not have that as much. So I picked my most apathetic class and worked with a colleague who was the teacher for AAA. And she um, would bring the AAA students to my general ed classroom. And my kids, the Gen Ed kids, their job would be to have reading circles and to read the books that they bring to them, most of them on a kindergarten to second grade level. But keep in mind, my Gen Ed kids are serving at about a third grade level. So them reading anything is a win. So it became a very coveted thing very quickly. Um, it became even a motivation to get things done in both classes. You threaten well, maybe we don't need to go to study buddies this week, and kids would get their act together very quickly. Here are some of my supporting research. Now, the action plan, I think, is what's most important when we're looking at something like this. So we have a study buddy routine, meaning that they will have a specific time they come, a specific amount of times they come, and a specific amount of time they stay. So They will have structured partner roles, so everybody has a job that they do. Uh, they'll have reading and comprehension tasks to do, and also teacher monitoring from two student aides, the sped teacher, and myself. We're all taking notes and observing as students were working. So there was a lot of note taking. So the timeline looks a lot like this. Week one would be the pre-test given to all students, the Gen Ed, the inclusion, and the AAA. Weeks 2 through 7 would be the intervention. So study buddies would come to a Gen Ed, two different Gen Ed classes, and then two different inclusion classes. And that gives us enough data where we could compare the the apathy level or the effort level, the engagement level of a Gen Ed classroom that's usually very, very quick to refuse. And then the final week is the post test, and this is to see if there were major major changes in some of the repetitive standards for English, like author's purpose, things like that. Um, and at least if they improved from the week one pretest. So participants would include eighth grade inclusion ELA, so that's students with IEPs, Gen Ed peers, and then a convenience sample of those peers. So, and then we have the AAA unit as well. So data collection includes observation checklist, comprehension probes of each different kind, and pre and post assessments. The ethics that we are going to cover, we are going to refer to students by their ID number and not their name. This is voluntary participation only. There's no additional risk, and it is given through normal instruction. So the expected results, what we're hoping for is that we have increased engagement throughout normal classes because we are motivated by an intrinsic award of working with a different population than you're used to and putting yourself in the teaching position rather than the student position if I were speaking to my inclusion students. Um, the improved comprehension, because with my Gen Ed kids, they had about a third grade reading level. So any exposure for them was beneficial to their comprehension. And then reduced reliance on teacher prompting. So we didn't have to answer those questions every 2 seconds. Instead, the kids learned to start asking these questions in their head and not trust everything just because it's written there. So that turns out highly critical as well. So we do see more active participation, increased independent skills, and improved literacy skills. And this is even in the students who are taking on the teaching role and are not realizing that they themselves are improving as they go. Now we do have limitations. We had them in the past, so these would be some limitations that I would want to confront prior to getting too deep into planning. Our sample size is too small. We do have time constraints, considering the 8 week barriers. We have the attendance variability, the truancy issue, also the peer pairing differences, students that just refuse to work together. Um, so we do have things like this that are going to come into play. Also, checking out um, different rallies, different meetings, so anything that the great speaker in the sky tells us to do, we need to do. So um we we do lose time with that, and we also lose the ability for students to get closer. So my overall analysis is the greatest strength is that it's a structured routine, and that ends up being very healthy and helpful for each demographic. The greatest challenge is consistency because mostly of student truancy, and then also student ISS, and uh, things of that matter being in trouble. Um, and then what I think needs improvement is having more time and data to be able to work.